just as a little bit of a preface, this is my first time ever being at the front of the room for anything. So if I'm a little nervous or crazy, just bear with me a little. So just as a quick idea to see where I'm at, who in here is currently a student? Anyone? Okay. What about like system administrators, server administrators, like any sort of admin role? Then what about like developers? All right. Trying to kind of get an idea of where we'll, who I'm speaking to. Helps to press the slide deck the right way. So just brief overview, we'll be going over system monitoring and the, so I made the, why humans shouldn't do it. What I really mean is why you should automate the alerts from it and why you shouldn't trust a person to just go and see everything themselves. We'll get into all of that throughout the things we'll be talking about. So just brief overview of who I am. So I've been in IT for about 9 years now, and I've only done crash course style training. So like the first job in IT I had was in the military, and it was a 6-month course of here's everything you need to know, now go do it. And that's been really my only training. Everything else was just figuring it out as I went. So, the things that I have put in here and that I've thought of is just the stuff I've seen by doing random things and figuring out what works, what didn't. So what we'll be talking about, first thing is the system monitoring, and what exactly that means and why you should do it. And kind of the first thing with that of why you should do system monitoring is just the amount of data that comes in from your systems. To give you an idea, if you had a company that had 50 people and they had 5 servers, 3 switches, 1 router, and a very basic security system, so your basic, single office setup, that infrastructure is going to generate about 400 events per second and about 15 gigabytes of data. So it's a lot to go through and see, and it's impossible for one person to be able to go through all of that, which is why you want something to monitor it and look through it, and also why you should automate the alerting of it. So, sorry, I'm speaking a little fast. And editing here, if anyone has any questions or ideas or anything to add, just raise your hand and speak up. So monitoring is observing and checking the progress of something over time. And I gave a couple examples here of things you can monitor, like drive space, speeds, mail flow, really anything that can create quantifiable events. And some of those things that can create events you might not necessarily think about at first. Like one thing that you could quantify is how many times did someone type something into a search bar that came back with no results. That might be something to look at. Like, okay, are we naming stuff too weird? Is something off? Like, it's not just from an IT perspective that this can be done, but even from like a business perspective of what kind of data do we have coming in. And monitoring helps to find the problem, not just cover the symptom. So like when you think of incident management versus problem management, does anyone here want to give an example of like incident management versus problem management? Maybe what is it? what do y'all think when you think of those two things?
Management likes to think about the broader issue, the bigger picture of what the problem is. Incident management usually is like trying to close the incident as fast as possible without necessarily looking at the broader picture depending on the scenario.
Yeah. So IDLE has defined it as an incident is, like you're saying, a single unplanned event that causes a service disruption. So something you should try to find, stop, and something small. So an incident could be a person locked themselves out of their account, they need a password reset. That is an incident. Problem is a cause or thing that causes incidents. So, their account is locked out not because they put in a password, but because a program is putting in a password for them because they saved it or something, and it's doing it over and over again. So that would be a problem because it's causing incidents. So monitoring can help you not just look at the incident, but look into the problem and find where the where the root cause is, where how to fix the solution. So like an example that I ran into was we kept having our mail flow stop. The message queue would keep backing up, it wouldn't go through. We couldn't figure out why because there was no alerts, no anything in there. And it turned out to be that our drive space was filling up. But it wasn't actually filling up to 100%, there's no space left. Exchange would shut off mail flow when the drive space was below 20%. And it was, it didn't make any sense. It shouldn't have been that way, but that's what it was. So then we put in an alert in place that when the server gets to 25%, go and clean it up to make sure it doesn't get to there. All right, so some of the programs, I should have put on there most popular free programs that I know of, because that's, I was saying a little bit before this, but I'm specifically looked for programs that are free. So then if you're trying to sell monitoring to management, or if you're a startup without a lot of money, it's very easy just to spin it up. Like all you need is a little bit of computer space, and it's not a monthly fee or anything. So the first one, PRTG, this is the one that I personally am most familiar with. And the base program, it's Windows based, so you just install it on a Windows server. And you get 100 sensors, but those sensors can monitor a lot of, just about anything that you could think of to look at. So there's built-in sensors that can monitor DNS. You can have it check to make sure these entries are going through. It can monitor, just ping to a device to make sure it's up and running. And there's I don't know how many custom or how many built-in sensors that you can go and do, and all you got to do is click on it and it pops it up. No technical knowledge needed of knowing the IP of the item, right? But you can also do custom sensors with these. And those custom sensors can work on anything that's based on a script of almost any kind, anything that the program can start and it runs, and as long as it gives the information back in, I think it's JSON format. And so you can do that with SNMP, API. I use it a lot with PowerShell and Python. You can do EXEs if you're that kind of programmer. It's not my realm, but there's a lot of options that you can do with it. Another one is Nagios, which the core is free and it's Linux based, so flip side of it. And kind of the same idea. You can do any sort of, this one is not as many pre-built in tools, it has a higher learning curve. But your limits with this one is really only what you can figure out how to script. You can have it monitor really anything that you could point a script to, whether in doing like WMI, like SNMP, same thing, SNMP, API, as long as you can get it back in a format that can go then put it into its database. So it's, just figuring out the information in and information out. And it gives you a place to pull it all into. And that's kind of a big thing with monitoring is like, sure, like all of these programs, like if you have 20 servers, right? They all have their own event log, they all have their own data, and you could go to each 20 and see these things. But if you don't pull it all into one field, eventually you're going to get tired of going and looking at those things. Or it's going to get repetitive and you're going to get bored. And we already got enough things that make us bored in this field at times. Another one is Graylog. And this one is specifically log collection. It's kind of the freeware version of Splunk, if y'all have ever heard of that one. And so anything that produces an event log, you can pull it into here. And this one's great, especially for if you're wanting to monitor a little more on the business side, because you could pull in, website statistics and internet traffic and things that, maybe someone more of a business side would want to see, like, how many people are visiting this, so the more that business aspect. And the last big one is scheduled tasks and cron, so Windows and Linux. Here are the things that you can just build in and do. Like I have one script that I run on Windows. It's on a scheduled task. It's just a Python script, and it goes and does checks against our Active Directory to make sure that it's replicating, make sure it's doing what it's supposed to, and it sends me an email with, here's the outcome. This was all green. This was not. This is the time that it took to do it. And then I have that email to go back and like, well, this has been failing for the last 3 weeks. What do we need to go do about it? So, on to why humans shouldn't monitor. So humans have a harder time seeing small changes and different patterns in our everyday life that we see all the time. So there was a psychologist, Melissa Beck, who did a study on this that she called change blindness. And most people at the beginning of the study were asked, how well do you think you'll notice a change in something? And they said they'd probably 70 to 80% of the time, which is, kind of what I would have thought too. But after the study, when people were expecting a change, they only noticed it about 40% of the time. And when there was a change happening that they weren't expecting, something completely out of the norm, they only noticed 20% of the time. So it's an extremely, small amount that you notice a change happening if you aren't expecting it. People in IT may notice a little bit more because we're constantly looking for those differences and changes. But still, as a kind of example for this, how many of y'all notice that the image changed sizes? 2? Like it's not much, but it's a small change. And it's hard to notice those small changes over time, and the trends and things. So that's why it's good to have something that can say, there was, 500 gigabytes of data sent through this thing yesterday, the day before that, and then today there's 200. Why the change? Why the difference? And you may not notice if you aren't looking at that all the time, every day. So something to alert you to say like, hey, this is a change from the baseline. This is an anomaly. Go check this out. Alrighty. So automation, like I was saying, data, so too much information. Obviously, it's like we can't process all of it, too much going on, or too little. You're trying to solve a problem, but you don't have any information. You don't know what's happening. You just know it's not working. You have a user saying that I can't log into this anymore, or I can't do this, and you have no idea why. So that's why it's good to monitor the systems. And the automation portion is also knowing, getting it when the event occurs, not when a user lets you know. Because there's kind of three big categories of users that I see. There's the call them techno-hypochondriacs, that their web page took 0.5 milliseconds longer to load. They're going to put in a ticket about it. And then the ones that are having major issues for 2 months and never let you know. And so this brings it down to, is there actually an issue? Are you alerted by it? And fixing it before it's even a problem. And part of the reason I asked, what kind of jobs do people have in here? Is to get an idea of am I speaking to someone that's going to be administering this, or someone that would be building the programs that are giving this data? So for the developers and the programmers and things, something to keep in mind is what kind of data is your program giving off? What kind of things could you put in there to send an event, to send information to the administrator in that would help them fix the problem for the end user, if there is any, or to even let you know, all of these things happen, next version of the program, we should make these changes. So there's something to keep in mind during the creation process. All right, so going a little bit more into specific automation ideas. And these are only what I came up, so if anyone has any other ones, just raise your hand. So drive space, it's, obvious one first off of, if a server runs out of drive space, it's not gonna work. And when you're, a lot of us could work in very large companies. I don't consider the company I work for large, but we still have 75 servers, and there's 4 people on the team, the actual server team. So we can't see everything all the time. We miss things, so just getting alerts really helps. Packet loss. So and I'll combine it with the next one too. A connection being active that you can reach something is really great, and knowing when it goes down, is a great thing to know, because then you immediately start looking at what caused it right this moment, and not just when someone comes up to you. But also packet loss of, yes, the connection is still active, but is it a good connection? Is it a usable connection? Is it something that is going to, not cause issues to stop working, but is it going to kind of ruin the productivity possibility of the people working on it? So we saw this a lot at the beginning of the pandemic of, everyone went home, but at first, we had everyone coming in on a VPN. It wasn't split tunnel. So all of the traffic was going from their houses to the office, to the web, to the office, to the houses. And so, yes, the connection was there. It was horrible. And, because of the fact that we were able to see the fact of these connection times were taking, they were slowing everyone down, we were able to figure out maybe we should split up the traffic coming here and only bring in things that were absolutely necessary. Event IDs, so just anytime this event ID pops up and whatever you have coming in, send an alert. Processes, so system processes that you have running in some of the programs like PRTG actually there's a technical term for it that I'm not thinking of right now, but pretty much instant remediation. It's we have one process that because of the program it runs on has a tendency to stop, and it will cause issues for the users on it. And so we have a monitor going just to check to make sure every 5 minutes, is this process still running? Is this process still running? And if at any point it's not, it will automatically send a service restart to that process and click it back on. And so then it's an instant remediation for monitoring that we don't even have to do. We can go and check and see, how often it's happening, but we don't even have to be involved in it at all. And then the last one that I thought of is the percent change. So stuff off of the baseline. So it's nothing's down, nothing's wrong, but something that's run within these parameters for the last 6 months suddenly changes by, 20, 30, 40%. Like that is an indicator that something's changed, something could be wrong. It could be nothing, just hired a bunch more people or something. But it's something that, maybe go and check into and see. Anyone else have any ideas of like things to monitor or automation?
Intrusion prevention and intrusion detection.
Yeah. So there's any, sending the alert that things are happening. Any others?
Similar to that, maybe like failed sign-on.
Okay.
Like all of a sudden there's this, but like maybe one or two every now and then normal, but all of a sudden we're having like 100 people who are trying to log in and they can't.
Mm-hmm.
Brute force type situations.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I've been fortunate. It has never happened to me, but I've heard of more than one person, which that's what they've, how they noticed that it was happening was all of their accounts started locking out. All right. So selling the idea. So this is, just how to get it going in your company, job, whatever. So to your peers, it can help find the root cause of an issue and fix it. Give them a lot more, less time they got to spend dealing with issues. Most people, if they're your peers, they're going to really quickly see the advantage of this, I would say. The next one, managers. So if you're trying to sell it to your boss, it can shorten the time to green, especially in today's world. Like more and more people are wanting that, 100% all the time up, which is obviously not possible. But we're used to, you could get away with, things being up 95% of the time. It's getting closer and closer to that, the important people want it up 99% of the time, 99.5% of the time. And this can help keep to that level. And then also follow any service level agreements that you have, or creating some. So then it's, yes, we're down right now, but we should pick up, or, this percent of our equipment is running, which is what we agreed with at the start. To kind of set those agreements so that way it can give you some buffer of, yes, we are doing something, we are working, here's the proof of that, just give us some time. So can really help out with, kind of getting the non-technical people a little understanding of what's happening, especially when you can show it in a graph or a board or something that's easy to process the information in. And the last one, the VIPs, it will increase uptime, which will always make them happy. And also it will help save money in the long term. Because like say you're, if you're able to get a system back up in 2 hours as compared to what, with not having any information could have taken a day or two, like that's a huge amount of money saved depending on the program. Like some things aren't as important as others. They're not going to have as big a draw, but then like if all your domain controllers crash on the same day, that's going to cause a lot of issues, cause money loss. And so being able to point out to people that, hey, this will save you money, definitely will make people happy. All right. So talked about system monitoring and automation, and what exactly those two things mean. So are there any questions at all?
So those programs that you ran through, can you go back to that slide, please?
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that, at least in my opinion, it's obvious that it would be nice to monitor all these different things.
Mhm.
So what specifically do these programs give us, just sort of out of the box? Because I've always kind of thought that, I should be able to say, this is a server I'm running, and I should be able to just run this program and it should just monitor all my network traffic, monitor my processes, monitor my memory usage, monitor my disk space, and just say, okay, over the last week, this has been the average. We'll now tell you if anything deviates from that average. Like, do these things give you that sort of thing out of the box?
So PRTG I know does. So the way that the setup works for that one is, once you build the initial server, you create an object in it. And it's a pretty, I would say you don't have to have any sort of technical ability to do any of the built-in things. You just need to know a few basic details about the network of, this is the IP I'm trying to go to, this is the DNS name, and these are credentials that can, touch the server for the things I need. And so you.
Oh, so is this like a program running on a second server that then connects to, through like SSH or something to?
Yeah, so it would connect it does. So PRTG doesn't put any agents on devices. It just reaches out to it through. Yep, or WMI, or vice versa. You can set up, if you want to get, flip it around and make it to where it sends the data to it only when something happens, like you do traps and things. But it's just running on its own box, and it's not super hardware heavy. It's depending on the amount of things you're running of how hardware heavy it is. Like you can run it. When I was first testing it out, I just ran it on a VM on my computer, and then just send everything to and from there. But you just put in the IP of the item, and then using the built-in ones, tell it I want to monitor disk space, network traffic, and this, and it already has for basic things like that all the calls and everything. It then builds these probes from it that collect all the data. And for PRTG, it collects it for up to 365 days, and will tell you, if it's more than 10% off the average over time, and it'll collect more and more, as you go along.
So it says we're talking about the one on the upper left, right?
Yes.
It's Windows based. So there's no like Linux equivalent. Is there a Linux equivalent?
There might be. Nagios is kind of the equivalent of it, but it's not as user-friendly. Like you have to have a little bit more knowledge with Linux. You got to build the. But if you use the Linux on a daily basis, it wouldn't take a whole lot more, and it does kind of the same thing. It just is a little bit more open source than PRTG is.
So when you say it's Windows-based, you mean it is running on Windows, but it can monitor a variety of...
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I use it for monitoring. I monitor Cisco products with it. I monitor our VMware platform, our other Windows servers. For a while, I was using it to monitor. I don't know if y'all have ever heard of Room Alert, but it measures the temperature and stuff of a room. And so Room Alert would only send out updates every 5 minutes. So you'd only have whatever the temperature was in that, on that exact moment. But then you could do an SNMP to it and get it every 60 seconds and see that constant change. And so then I was able to make, they had their built-in one, but it didn't give me the data I really wanted. And so then I was able to pull it all into here and have all my monitoring in one place. Because with both PRTG and Nagios, you can make dashboards that can either require a login, so if you want to keep it to like just the IT team or just whoever, or make it to where anyone with the URL and access to the server, just network wise, be able to go and view. So like for one of our I don't know exactly what the exact term is. They work with a program called Yardi, just kind of like a Salesforce kind of program. So like I set up a screen for them so they could see all of the stats and everything on their VPN to their to the company that they work with servers. So they could constantly see, like, okay, yes, it's up, no, it's down, it's running slow. Like, it's not just me, it is this. So then it gives them a dashboard they can go to, and it kind of helps slow down the number of tickets that they put in, at least a little bit.
What's your opinion on correlation of logs and events across multiple
Yeah,
devices?
that's something I personally am still trying to figure out, and I would love to. At this point, I still do it kind of manually. Of I see this here, and I'm going to go and look at this here, and so, but because of the fact that I have some of the data already, it makes it a lot easier than having to go to each thing individually. But yeah, I know that aspect is hugely helpful for knowing that this event went off, the traffic increased here, this happened here, so we can figure out a way to alert when things happen together. Like, it definitely makes it, okay, this is definitely the issue.
Yeah, so you're not looking at 3 separate incidents, you're looking at a problem.
Yeah.
I think you alluded to that, you spoke about Splunk. So Splunk does that, SIM tools, like
Mhm.
algorithm and all of it, they do that for you.
I didn't catch that. What was it?
If you use Splunk or Logarithm or some of those SIEM tools, they would do that. And there are some in the cloud as well, like Microsoft Defender, Defender for cloud, they'll also do the same thing.
Okay.
In addition to dashboards, to like look and see the different monitors that you've chosen to set up,
Mm-hmm.
have you set up things that like push an alert to you by like an email? Or
Yeah. So some of them are built in. So like the PRTG will send out emails, webhooks, API, I think. I've only used it for email and webhooks. The Nagios, it's kind of the same thing, email, webhook, API, which I exclusively use it to monitor our like one certain aspect of things. And what I've done there is we use Zendesk for our help desk program. So anytime that breaks the threshold, the thing I monitor with it isn't something that I would fix. It would go to another team. And so it just sends them an email, creates some ticket at help desk, or help desk, Zendesk. And so then they know it's there, they can look at it, and it creates the automation. And I just have to go in every once in a while and make sure that all the programs are running correctly. You check on it like once or twice a week. And beforehand, the thing that's being monitored wouldn't, it may not even know it's a issue for a couple weeks or until someone said, hey, our internet's not working.
Have you dealt much with the opposite problem? You're seeing too many alerts or something's not reliable.
Yeah,
What
False positives.
false positives and
What have you done to try to weed those out?
so something I've done is I look at what's causing the false positive, and I try to either change the parameters to no longer include that. It's like I had an alert set up to if network traffic gets above this amount, send me an alert. but then we changed business. One of our business aspects changed, and so that item like spiked, and so it was hitting off all the time. So I had to change the parameters of what it fit. And sometimes there's not an easy way to do that, and you kind of just got to look into the false positives. But sometimes, just constantly going back and looking like, what's setting this off? Can I figure out a way to weed that out either through changing parameters or just knowing that most of this, isn't going to be useful to look at. And then even real alerts, something to keep in mind of is alert fatigue. If you set up too many alerts and you're getting them all the time, even if they're real alerts, you're going to just start ignoring them because, a month in of getting 30 alerts a day, 40 alerts a day, you're not going to look at each one of those with the same level that you used to.
To go off of that, wouldn't you be able to like set up a rule that if you start receiving a massive amount of notifications, indicating a potential false positive or something critically wrong, that it sends a different kind of alert or notification to prevent that alert fatigue? Something that would, for example, if you have a push notification to your phone, you could have it set a different priority to create a different sound, vibrating even on if on do not disturb or something like that.
Yeah, no, that would be a really good idea. I know I have it set up to send a summary if more than 5 alerts are going off within a 5-minute time span. It will send me all alerts in one email, just to try to clear that up a little bit. But yeah, doing things like that or sending them to different places. Like, these 10 alerts, they will email you if they go off. These 5 alerts, they'll email you, but they'll also email everyone else on the team. And this alert that's super bad, if it goes off, will email, your boss's boss.
The director.
Yeah. If this is happening, like, they need to know too, kind of deal. So changing who gets the alerts and, how many people know an alert's going off.
When you're reaching like the levels that, we were talking about with alert fatigue, reaching 30, 40, reports in a day, would that be something that would prompt let's say like a baseline reevaluation?
It could. Yeah, that'd be a good idea. This is all, like I said, new for me. As specified before, like no formal training. This is just, I started doing system monitoring 2 years ago when I started at the job I'm at now. Because it was like I was trying to learn the system and I'm looking through things and I noticed like we'd had a server that had actually been offline because it had been stuck in a boot loop after a Windows update. But it wasn't something like the server didn't impact the users. They weren't using it on a daily basis. No one noticed it was off. And
Also, if it's not on, it can't send an alert that it's not starting.
exactly. So setting up something, outside of that system to say, hey, this is down, which that's something else to keep in mind is if you're setting up alerts, think of the path that an alert goes out. Because like if you're alerting on something, if you set up an alert on something that's going to alert you that the network's down that can send out that message, it's not going to send that message out. So, there's a lot of different ways to do that. It could be, if you have two locations, having them, monitor the other one, or going real old school and doing used to you do the modems out that were completely independent of your internet. People do that nowadays with SIM cards, and just something that if nothing else can talk out, send a text to me through here, and
Or even failover alerts.
yeah.
This device failed to respond to an SNMP. And
Yep.
it's an alert.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Okay. So, anyone have any ideas?
You got one right here.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
I was just gonna riff off of what you just talked about with the external monitoring system. Concrete example, so I work on a team that provides managed Kafka for other engineers and their applications teams. And one of the really important things is how the lag between applications that are consuming messages and what the messages are that are coming in. Consumers are not reliable reporters of their own lag because that might end up in a loop. It may fail workload metrics, all sorts of stuff. So we have exactly like you described, like totally separate set of servers that all they do is query metadata so that we can figure out when lag is occurring, even when consumers' applications themselves don't know.
Did you have your hand up? Okay.